have spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action. Jordan Peterson has always gotten on my nerves, and this video that recently came to my attention, in which he smugly argues that one cannot be both a Christian and a Marxist, particularly irked me, so I decided to comment on it. Let's listen to some of what he said.
She said, and this was interesting, she said, "I'm a Christian and a Marxist." And I thought, no. You can only be a Christian and a Marxist if you, well, there's a couple of ways. One is that you just want to be all things that are good at once, regardless of their internal contradictions. And so that would be one reason. And another reason would be that you don't know anything about Christianity or Marxism. And then the next would be that you're just compartmentalized.
Now let's just stop right there, before we even get into the content of the video. Listen to the smug tone with which he's speaking. He seems to think that the idea that anyone could possibly be both a Marxist and a Christian is just idiotic. You'd have to be an idiot, an utter fool, to possibly think there could be any common ground between the teachings of Jesus Christ and the teachings of Karl Marx. Now, what's ironic about this reveals how utterly ignorant Jordan Peterson is about world affairs. Nicaragua currently has a government led by the Sandinistas. The official slogan of the government is Christianity, socialism, and solidarity. In Venezuela, the president who led the country on the road toward socialism, Hugo Chavez, and his successor, Nicolas Maduro, are both Roman Catholics who frequently quote the Bible in their speeches. Evo Morales, the socialist leader of Bolivia, met with the Pope and presented the Pope an object that was a hammer and sickle on a cross. The leader of the Russian Communist Party, the second largest political party in Russia, Gennady Zyuganov, is himself a Russian Orthodox Christian. And in Russia, you will find many Russian Orthodox churches that have images of Stalin. The Russian Orthodox Church frequently says positive things about the Soviet Union. Furthermore, in his autobiography, Fidel Castro wrote, "If people call me Christian, not from the standpoint of religion, but from the standpoint of social vision, I declare that I am a Christian." So all of these people around the world, the Russian Orthodox Christians who vote for the Communist Party, the socialists of Nicaragua, the socialists of Venezuela, the socialists of Bolivia, Oscar Romero, the great priest in El Salvador who was murdered, all of these people are just fools and idiots, according to Jordan Peterson. He, a Canadian professor with a snide voice, seems to know more than millions of people all around the world. The smugness and the arrogance combined with his ignorance of this topic just utterly shocks me and fills me with anger.
Marxism is a materialistic philosophy. It's predicated on the idea that essentially, an idea that Dostoevsky criticized in great depth was that if you just made people rich enough, let's say, if you deprived them of their privation, if you equalized their economic status, let's say, that the utopia would come to light upon earth. You might like to think that, you know, if you were rich, your life would be better. And maybe it would be somewhat better, but it wouldn't be as much better as you might hope. And that's because you'd still have most of the problems that people have. You know, you still maybe wouldn't get along with your sister, and you'd still get divorced, and maybe you'd even be more likely to. And there'd still be illnesses that would beset you. You'd be able to deal with them perhaps with some degree more urgency. And you'd still have the problem with what the hell your life is for and what you're doing on the planet and how to conduct yourself in the proper way. And so we don't want to be too naive about materialism.
Now, this clip should immediately discredit Jordan Peterson to his audience, because it's very clear he does not know the meaning of a basic philosophical term, materialism. When Marxists refer to dialectical and historical materialism, they're not arguing that people should have more stuff. Rather, they are arguing that it is the reality that creates the mind, and the mind does not create reality. This is a reference to the debate between idealists and materialists. This refers to the notion that thought is inseparable from matter that thinks, as Friedrich Engels said. So the fact that Jordan Peterson thinks that the Marxist concept of materialism refers to wanting to have more stuff shows he has no idea not just about Marxism, but about even basic philosophy. How is this man not full of shame and embarrassed at his ignorance?
And there's the idea that, that Marx had, that religion was the opiate of the masses, which doesn't exactly sound like. I've always thought religion was the opiate of the masses, but communism, Marxism was the methamphetamine.
No one disputes that Karl Marx was an atheist, but Peterson is not reading you the entire quotation from Karl Marx. If one reads what Marx actually said, he says, "Religion is the heart of a heartless world and the soul of soulless conditions. Indeed, it is the opiate of the people." So he's deliberately misrepresenting a quote because he has no idea what he's talking about.
Criticism of religion disillusions man so that he will think, act, and fashion his reality like a man who has discarded his illusions and regained his senses, so that he will move around himself as his own true sun. S-U-N. Yeah, well, that's Marxism in a nutshell, all right. I mean, that's the fundamental definition of pathological narcissism. So that he will move around himself as his own true sun, right. Religion is only the illusory sun which revolves around man as long as he does not revolve around himself. That's the sort of poem that would be written by someone who revolved around himself as his own true sun.
And here he is, yet again, not understanding the words he is arguing against. It's very clear in that passage that he just quoted, Karl Marx is not referring to an individual person when he says man. He's referring to human beings overall, human beings as a collective entity. There was actually a painting painted by the very famous Marxist Diego Rivera called Man, the Creator of the Universe. It seems here he's not ranting against Marx. Rather, he's ranting against Ayn Rand and Anton LaVey and Milton Friedman and the various adherents of free market capitalism who believe in selfishness and individualism. Now, I want to talk about why Jordan Peterson is particularly dangerous. The overall message that Jordan Peterson is pushing is that human beings are inherently evil. He views humanity with utter contempt. He does not see us as the amazing species we are that in just a few thousand years has gone from hunter-gatherers in the woods to space travel and iPhones, the species that is capable of a kind of creativity beyond anything else, a species that is able to enact real wonders and change and interact with its environment in a way that alters the nature of reality. Oh no, according to Peterson, human beings are barbarians. According to Peterson, human beings are monstrous creatures. And he deliberately lies and distorts history in order to make this point. Here's a clip from another lecture that he gave.
And so, we should never forget that Hitler was elected, and he was elected by a large majority, too. It was a landslide vote, the kind of vote that no modern democratic leader ever gets. So, although it's difficult for people to swallow, it's hard not to assign culpability for what happened in Germany to the society at every strata.
Wow, what a brilliant insight into the malevolent nature of mankind. It's very amusing, except it didn't happen. Hitler was never elected by a majority of the German people. The only way Hitler was able to assume power was by declaring a state of emergency and shutting down the parliament, having the communist deputies in the Reichstag parliament arrested. This is just a lie, but it feeds Peterson's message that human beings deep down are evil. Well, I think Peterson should examine his own beliefs and whether or not they are truly in line with the Christian teaching. He should read Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, where it says that man is created in the image of God. He should furthermore read the book of Matthew and read about how Christ said the last shall be first and the first shall be last. He should read the book of Acts and learn how the disciples of Christ held all things in common, and many were in awe of the wonders and signs they performed, making sure that none were without and distributing according to need. Peterson seems very committed to defending the capitalist system and the idea that we should have an economy centered around profits. However, many places in the Bible it makes clear that the job of the worker is to produce for those in need, and that it is labor that creates all wealth. Many places in the Bible it also condemns the practice of lending money at interest. So I think Peterson is just wrong here, and those of us who are really truly interested in Jesus' message and in Marxism should do further investigation into the possibility that these two beliefs can certainly overlap.